wanted to talk to you a little bit about the split sheet for songwriters. First of all, I'm using a split sheet template from Songtrust. If you go to songtrust.com, you'll find this split sheet available there. It is a great, easy tool to utilize for the split sheets. What I like to do when I'm working with other writers is have some sort of deal memo that comes through email to have everybody understand their role before we ever just start co-writing. Like, there's never an instance where we're co-writing where we didn't have planned to do it. And in that plan is what the expectation is for percentages as we walk away. And it becomes an important piece because without that expectation and understanding, things would change. Like if I told you, I want to co-write with you, but before we co-write, I want you to understand that you're going to walk away owning none of it. You would definitely not want to go in and co-write typically, right? Or if I said, you're no matter what, I'm going to walk away with 90%, you're going to walk away with 10, you might not want to be involved in that co-writing deal. But there are very specific elements that go into that might be as simple as this. So a good example of how I work. We're going into a studio session, and I've written the main chorus, the first verse, and the bridge, and the collaborator that I'm working on, I just basically message him and say, listen, I'd like for you to work on verse 2, and then if you have any other ideas or refinements and things like you want to pitch along the way, let's do that. But already isolating the fact that the real goal is only for him to write the other verse limits the amount of percentage that he could walk away with. So in the deal memo, like we're just saying, well, listen, it could be as simple as this. We're going to split this according to the way that it balances out after we walk away from the session. So letting him know that it's not going to be just a basic 50-50 or whoever's in the room writing gets a piece. It is literally going to be just me and just him, no matter who he brings. So if for some reason he brings a guest, which I usually don't even allow. I usually only the writers are in the room when we're working anyway. So there's no entourage, no extra people, no one that can say, oh, what about this? Because that all of a sudden creates a whole whirlwind of issues. But what we'll do is at least have some expectation. Now, normally when I'm writing with my collaborative team, they have an expectation because they've worked with me before, so they kind of understand that they're not ever typically going to walk away with more than 50% of a song unless they came in with it, unless they, and that's when we have to put that in the deal, in the memo, the typical email. Now, it is not set in stone, it's pending approval, but once we get to the split sheet, this is the piece that is set in stone. And it really just outlines a couple of basic things. And you can see this is the example. It's basically the same thing on both sides, because one is this is the example, and then this is the actual template. And so basically you're going to, identify the composition, and it basically says this is how the divisions will work. These are the writers, and this is their split percentage. And then it gives you all of the contractual lingo that goes along with it, We agree to own shares in the copyright and money's attributed to the composition. So we're going to share this, collectively. Now, here's what's important about this. There are many different ways you could do it. A lot of people just go, oh, it's just so much easier to just split it evenly, but it typically isn't. And I think that the problem with it splitting it evenly is we have to identify what we're splitting. And in this instance, the composition that we're talking about is the copyright PA, the PA copyright. By having splits on the PA copyright, it allows everybody to take part in any time that the SR is being activated, but it definitely doesn't mean that the SR is being shared in the same way. And so I think that that's the one thing that's a bit misunderstood, because this is the percentage on composition. And so, these percentages are important. But the problem that I have with just saying, let's all share it equally all ways, is depending on what people's contributions really were, that might feel favorable for as long as we're making thousands of dollars. But once the dollars get bigger, it definitely does not become favorable to know that you gave away 5 or 10% that you should have rightfully owned. Because of your work and your contributions versus someone that just came in and played a few chords or dropped, one idea and walked away. And I think that is one of those big pieces. But this agreement outlines that. It's very important to have this agreement going into the copywriting and into filling out the stuff with your PRO in terms of splits. But the PRO split specifically typically speaks to the actual sound recording that we're going to utilize, and we need to know what those splits are as well. So those splits might also add in some sort of split with the record label or some other party that we have to consider. And so the hard part about that is, let's say we signed a deal where the artist or the band is making 30% of the bigger picture. That 30% is then split into these percentages after that point in time. So that's why this becomes such an important thing to have outlined as you're completing a song, wrapping it up before you go to sale. So having song splits becomes super important, so everybody knows what they're going to be earning. These earnings also include both front end and back end payments, so that if there are front end, we have an expectation. And if we want to rewrite the front end element, we do. So, like as an example, for me and my band in the past, what we've done is songwriting composition splits look like this, and they're very detailed. But then the SR splits, which were the stuff that we technically take on the front end, oftentimes we're just split evenly. So we say, okay, well, the sales of the song is going to be even splits, but the royalties from the song are going to be separated by very minute percentages. And so there's a couple ways that you can outline that. And then of course you could also modify and make adjustments as needed here. And as long as everybody is in agreement and everybody understands what that expectation is, then everybody's usually pretty happy moving forward.